My name is Ludwig Armbruster, and in this video series I'm going to show you how to create a cube in Analysis Services 2008 and also how to configure the dimensions and finally browse the cube. Alright, let's get started. Here you see the SQL Server Management Studio, SQL Server 2008 Management Studio, and I have all the example databases installed here. So the important database we need for that example is the AdventureWorks DW 2008, which can be downloaded from the CodePlex website. Okay, so here this query shows the fact internet sales, which I'm going to use to build the cube. And the fact internet sales basically is just a typical fact table showing for each product within an order one record. So I have this sorted by customer key. So if I run it, then you'll see that, for instance, the S057418 sales order number appears here actually 5 times, and so from that line to this one here, that represents one order for the customer 11,000, containing 5 different products: 573, 541, 530, 214, and so forth. And to the right we have other type of typical information for an order, like the quantity, the unit price for each of those products, the standard costs, the sales amount. And the sales amount, please note, is just the multiplication of the quantity with the unit price. There's also freight information. There is no profit information, just to let you know. That's sort of a hint for a calculated measure in Analysis Services 2008. Alright, other tables are of course important here in that AdventureWorks DW 2008. Take a bit time and explore it. That's basically the data warehouse, and it's completely designed based on Kimball modeling practices. Now, in order to build a cube in Analysis Services 2008, we need the Business Intelligence Development Studio, which can be found here under the SQL Server 2008 installation. Now, when we open that, basically we just see all over blank, but let me just real quick establish a connection here in the Server Explorer. Type in my server name and my instance name. You might work on a regular installation. I have here a named instance installation. That's why I have to provide a server name / and then the instance name. If you work on a standard installation, you would just type in localhost or a dot, and then you would be able to connect. The reason why I do that here is just I think it's helpful to have object access or table access to all the tables we use in that project. Actually, in that project we're not going to use all of them, but we can, for instance, right click on it and then we can browse the data, and it's just helpful to use the Server Explorer, especially if you work in an environment where you have several databases. So I always use that and would recommend that. Now on the right hand side you see the Solution Explorer, which is currently still empty. So we need to create a project now. Now if you go to File, you say New, you say Project. Business and Intelligence Development Studio offers now actually 7 different projects, and the one we need is the Analysis Services project. So there are other projects, for instance the Import Analysis Services project, the Integration Services project, and so forth, but for now we're fine with the Analysis Services project. Of course, later on in other videos we will create Integration Services projects and also Reporting Services projects. Now what I always notice in projects is that name, and that part down here causes confusion. So we have name, we have location, we have solution name. So what's up with that? Now the name allows you to define the name of your project. So I just named that SAS Cube 2008 or SSAS Cube 2008. Now the solution actually is a container for one or several projects. This I call BI solution. So what that means is currently we create a solution but just with one project. Now later on, if we like, we could add a reporting services project, an integration services project, and the advantage is just it's all in one piece together. We decide to save that here, that's fine. If you have a different location, you just browse and tell the dialog where you'd like to save it. And of course we want to create a directory for that solution as well. Say OK. And the Business Intelligence Development Studio now created that structure for us, and I think that's the main important thing. When you develop cubes, you're always going to work in data source views, cubes, dimensions, and also roles to take care of security. Now I just start with the first thing to do is a data source, and you see here's already a data source from a prior example I did. I just want to delete that to show you how I do it. So I hit the new button, I say excuse me, server name, and then the name of my named instance, and then I select the DW 2008 database. Connection is successful. I say OK. That's basically just a picture of information here. Now that's important here. Analysis services needs to have some credentials, and especially in a production environment it's actually best practice to create specifically for that cube a Active Directory account and make sure that account doesn't expire, because if it does, analysis services won't be able to retrieve any data. So in a production environment, create that account. For our training here, the service account is sufficient. And I usually don't like spaces in names, so I remove those and put a DS, and here you see the connection string. Okay, so we have the data source. Next step is to create a data source view, and I just want to mention to you, we just created a data source by right-clicking data source and then new data source. You could also create a data source within the data source view wizard by hitting new data source here. It just calls that whatever you like better. I usually create them in the data source. Now here that dialog basically tells us, would you like to use an existing rational data source or create a new one? Since we just created one, I'd like to use that one. So I say next. And then we just basically see on the left hand side excuse me, all the available tables in our data source, and on the right hand side the tables which we'd like to use to build our cube, which will be part of the data source view. So I just go over here, and by double clicking I move the ones we need to the right hand side, and we need also the date, we need the product, the category, promotion. And later on, when you know more about the database and you're more familiar with it, you will easily recognize what tables you need to move to the right hand side, so don't worry about it. I think that's it. So just to let you know, if you forget one here, don't worry, it's still possible to add tables later on to a existing data source. Data source view, I'm sorry, that's a data source view which now be recognizable by the name. I say finish, And now we have a data source and a data source view. See you in the next video.